Welcome to the Peak of Geek, where we've hit the top but with no plans to stop. When you look back on your defining years, when you were still figuring out your personal tastes and preferences, what were some of the things that influenced you? And is it still important today? For me, a huge one is Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball. And when I say Dragon Ball, I mean the early days, before Son Goku found out he was an alien, spoilers I guess, and he was just figuring out his place in the world, while fiercely protecting his friends with equal parts kindness and martial arts. And I personally prefer my adventure stories with a bit of humor mixed in to pace out some of the action.
It's always fascinating to me when artists directly influence other artists. When future manga creator Akira Toriyama saw Disney's 101 Dalmatians as a young boy, he claimed it blew him away with how amazing the animation was. Yet his original inspiration for interest in manga actually came from Osamu Tezuka's Astro Boy, known in Japan as Mighty Atom. Even Tezuka, the god of manga, was impressed by the animated feature films created by Walt Disney and his team. Allegedly, Tezuka saw Bambi over 80 times throughout his life.
Toriyama always loved to draw, and he soon realized he had a talent for it. After finishing high school, where he focused on creative design, he joined an advertising agency where he would draw flyers to promote sales for businesses. But something felt off. He didn't want to obey the dress code, or show up so early for work, and as a result, he missed out on bonuses. Eventually, he decided this corporate lifestyle just wasn't right for him. So after 2.5 years of working in an environment he had grown to hate, he quit.
In 1978, at 23 years old, Toriyama was broke, unemployed, and living with his parents. So one day, while visiting a cafe, he randomly decided to submit a manga one-shot story to a contest in Weekly Shonen magazine. But he missed the deadline. So he submitted again, this time to Weekly Shonen Jump. And even though his story made it to the list of finalists, it would never be published. But it had nothing to do with the quality of the art or the story. It had everything to do with the fact that Mysterious Rainjack was a blatant parody of Star Wars, which had hit theaters the year before. And sadly, these few sneak peeks may be all we'll ever see, since the original pages were stolen in the 1990s.
The folks at Shonen Jump may have been worried about copyright infringement, but one particular editor, named Kazuhiko Torishima, who would go on to become Toriyama's editor, instantly recognized the storytelling and artistic talent on display in Mysterious Rainjack. So, he encouraged Toriyama to keep drawing and keep sending in manga.
And later that year, in November of 1978, Weekly Shonen Jump would run the first chapter of Wonder Island from up-and-coming manga creator Akira Toriyama. When a kamikaze pilot crashes into the Pacific Ocean and washes up on the strange Wonder Island, he meets the island's stranger inhabitants and has a few wacky adventures. Surprisingly, this highly original story finished last in the magazine's popularity poll. The sequel, Wonder Island 2, suffered a similar fate.
But Toriyama's stubbornness wouldn't let him quit. Over the next year, he would keep drawing and keep submitting stories, and in August of 1979, he finally found success.
That same Shonen Jump editor, now apparently fully invested in Toriyama's success, suggested he should draw something with a female protagonist, and this time, the one-shot manga, Tomato Girl Detective, was a hit with readers.
For his next work, Toriyama decided to ride this wave of success with another female-led manga, and in 1980, Dr. Slump began serialization in the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump.
The series follows the adventure of a little girl robot named Arale, who is created by Senbei Norimaki, aka Dr. Slump, in Penguin Village, a place where humans live alongside talking animals, objects, and all sorts of offbeat characters. This comedy science fiction manga would soon explode in popularity and spawn an anime series that would begin airing in Japan the very next year. Then, in 1982, an Akira Toriyama fan club was established, and the fandom would only grow from there.
However, despite Dr. Slump's tremendous popularity, Toriyama wanted to end it soon after starting it, and Weekly Shonen Jump publisher Shueisha told him he could, as long as he had another serialized manga ready to go. So while working on Dr. Slump for 4 years, Toriyama would continue submitting one-shots to Weekly Shonen Jump and other manga magazines, until one day, Torishima suggested that he draw a story that featured kung fu.
As a massive Jackie Chan fan, Toriyama created Dragon Boy, a 2-chapter story that would lay the foundation for his most popular series yet.
It's Dragon Ball. We all know it's Dragon Ball.
In 1984, Japanese kids would soon start reading about the adventures of a tough-tailed monkey boy named Son Goku, an ambitious teenage genius named Bulma, and their search for the 7 wish-granting Dragon Balls. In the early days of the story, Toriyama drew inspiration from Journey to the West, a classic Chinese novel published in the 16th century during the Ming Dynasty.
While the plot and characters felt a bit familiar if you had read Journey to the West, Dragon Ball would soon abandon its source material and venture off in a brand new direction. But before we go any further, we have to switch gears and fast forward in time.
13 years later, on the other side of the globe, in the fall of 1997, a brand new cartoon called Dragon Ball Z started broadcasting on YTV in Canada, and also on something called Cartoon Network. But it wouldn't grab the attention of me and my friends until the spring of 2000 when the Frieza saga was in full swing. I remember not really understanding what was going on, but enjoying the show nonetheless. Around the same time, a company called Viz began publishing Goku's childhood adventures in graphic novel format.
I was drawn into the book's cover art, and when I turned it around, I realized this was a prequel to Dragon Ball Z. This is actually that same copy I bought from the department store with my own allowance. And yes, I'm still very proud.
And it was love at first sight. After reading the first Dragon Ball book, I coincidentally woke up before school started one morning looking for the episodes of Pokemon that would typically air at this time, but while channel surfing, I caught a glimpse of the animated version of my Dragon Ball graphic novel come to life. And it would become forever stuck in my memory thanks to that super catchy theme song.
I could never find another episode of the original Dragon Ball, but luckily for me, it was the dawn of online shopping, and in 2002, I bought this DVD collection of the series, and it arrived, like, 2 months later. While reading the story was fun, seeing the characters talk and move in color was even better. And even though this collection only contained the first 13 episodes and the first movie, it was and still is the perfect setup for the rest of the series.
Alongside Goku and Bulma, we meet Master Roshi, or Kame Sennin. Sorry, old habits die hard. I'm just gonna go with the nostalgic English names here. We also meet Yamcha, Puar, Oolong, and we get to see Goku's extending power pole, his flying Nimbus cloud, and his mysterious ability to copy Master Roshi's Kamehameha energy wave, before even more mysteriously turning into a giant ape when he catches a glimpse at the moon, werewolf style. To top it all off, we get to see the magical wish-granting dragon before our heroes decide to go off on their separate ways. From now on, it would be a whole new world.
As for me, since only the first 13 episodes of the show were translated into English, I would have to buy more graphic novels to find out what would happen next.
It's at this point that the series begins its slow transition into a more action-focused one, but it would never truly lose its silly sense of humor. And to me, that's peak Dragon Ball. While I enjoyed the imaginative and impressively choreographed fights, whether it was during the World Martial Arts Tournament, or when Goku was picking fights with an evil army or a demon/alien, each bent on world domination, I was always more interested in the expansion of its world and characters. I remember being genuinely excited when Goku goes to visit Bulma to fix the broken dragon radar. It was our first time seeing West City, complete with hovercars, and we get to meet Bulma's father, Dr. Briefs, the eccentric inventor head of Capsule Corporation, who's responsible for all the amazing technology in this world. And when Goku, Krillin, and Bulma fight General Blue from one of the Dragon Balls, but they end up lost in Penguin Village from Dr. Slump, so Goku and Arale team up to kick his butt, I had no idea who in the world these weirdos were, but man, I loved every second of it. Or later, when Goku fights in Fortune Teller Baba's little tournament to find the last Dragon Ball, and he gets to spar with his dead grandfather. My heart. Or near the end of Goku's original childhood adventures, when he had to save the world president from King Piccolo, and the president is actually a little blue dog with a mustache and glasses. Only in Dragon Ball. This really is a series with too many memorable moments.
And when I want to revisit some of these moments in an interactive format, there are some awesome Dragon Ball video games out there.
I wouldn't recommend the original Famicom game. This one came out in the West as Dragon Power, but it completely removed the references to Dragon Ball. Either way, both versions are way harder than they should have been. I'd rather play Advanced Adventure for the Game Boy Advance, a fantastic side-scrolling action game with surprisingly deep one-on-one battles to mix things up. This one covers the whole series in a pretty satisfying way. Or there's Revenge of King Piccolo for the Wii, another side-scrolling adventure that covers Goku's journey to stop the Red Ribbon Army and King Piccolo. But if you love the Legend of Zelda games on DS, where you control Link with the stylus, you'll want to check out the Dragon Ball Origins games. These ones never finish telling the complete Dragon Ball story, but what's here is excellent and unique. And of course, if you're looking for some mindless fighting action, the Budokai Tenkaichi series on PS2 and Wii include Dragon Ball characters, with Part 3 Story Mode featuring a Dragon Ball specific saga to enjoy. Even one of the franchise's latest video game releases, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, the open-world action RPG, released a piece of DLC in 2023 that covers Goku's fight with Piccolo Jr. right before the switch to Z.
In the original run of Dragon Ball, there was no distinct separation between the adventures of Goku as a child and his adventures as a father after finding out about his Saiyan heritage. But personally, I do find a tonal difference between the light-hearted vibes of Dragon Ball and the much more serious ones found in most of Dragon Ball Z.
And yes, there were serious moments in Dragon Ball, just as there were light-hearted ones in Z, especially in the final Majin Buu saga, which, to be completely honest, is still my favorite, obvious pacing issues aside, mostly because at the time, it felt like a return to form for Toriyama's signature brand of humor. Although, in reality, the man was probably just done with this series and ready to move on to his own next chapter.
After 519 chapters of Dragon Ball, the series would come to an end in 1995. As one of the most popular media franchises of all time, it's no surprise that Toriyama's recognizable art would become incredibly sought after.
And as a fan of video games, Toriyama would lend his pen to designing characters and monsters for Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, Blue Dragon, and more. And he would continue creating manga, though the stories never went beyond 14 chapters.
It seems Toriyama was done with long-running serialized storytelling. And hey, can you blame him? The man definitely deserved a break.
But then, in 2015, Dragon Ball returned in the form of Dragon Ball Super. While Toriyama wasn't writing dialogue or drawing the art anymore, that's left to Toyotaro, more on him in a sec, the original concept is all Toriyama, and he continues to approve storyboards. As of the recording of this video, while the anime adaptation ended in 2018, the manga is still going strong in the monthly pages of V-Jump, with English translations following shortly thereafter. But who is this Toyotaro? Well, he began his career writing and drawing a manga adaptation of Dragon Ball Heroes, a mega popular trading card arcade game that's also been ported to Nintendo DS, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. But before Dragon Ball Heroes, apparently Toyotaro was the one behind the legendary unofficial fan comic Dragon Ball AF, using the pen name Toyble.
I vaguely remember reading a few chapters, and that image of Super Saiyan 5 Goku, I totally believe that was the next saga of Dragon Ball. And since Toyotaro's art emulates Toriyama's style almost perfectly, it's no wonder he was chosen to write and draw Dragon Ball Super.
At New York Comic Con in 2023, during a special Dragon Ball panel, a brand new anime series was announced called Dragon Ball Daima, with the involvement of Akira Toriyama. It's set to air in the fall of 2024, and will follow versions of the characters we know and love who have been mysteriously turned small. I'm sure I'm not the only one here getting major Dragon Ball GT vibes, and for me, that's not a bad thing.
It seems that the legacy of Dragon Ball will never die. I once read that in Japan, Goku is recognized as a super-powered cultural icon, similar to Superman here in the West. And yeah, that makes sense.
It's also wild when you sit back and realize how many manga creators were directly inspired by Akira Toriyama and Dragon Ball. Eiichiro Oda of One Piece fame and Masashi Kishimoto, who wrote and drew Naruto and its sequel, are two creators who've spoken publicly on their love and respect for Toriyama. I think it's fair to say he changed the shonen manga industry forever.
And believe it or not, reading and watching Goku's childhood adventures helped me grow into the person I am today. I was inspired by his unwillingness to give up, to fight for what he believes in, and to protect what's important to him. But what about you? Do you also love Dragon Ball? Or are there other characters and stories that you enjoyed as a kid, which are still special to you now? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, I'm sure there's a universe out there where Goku goes to high school, meets Chi-Chi, and has to stop a Piccolo that looks like a British vampire. Yeah, I'm glad we live in this universe.
Hey, hope you're having a super awesome day. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you real soon.